Welcome to episode 18 of INTERPROM Inspired Uplifted with FitSM. I'm your host, Mark Rovers, and I will walk you through this episode as far as what the release and deployment management process of FitSM has to in store for you, what it has to offer for any service provider, anyone in the business of providing services to another organization. This is all based on the FitSM or Fit Service Management Standard, which, by the way, you can download for free from the fitsm.eu website, along with dozens of other documents, and it's all for free. So by all means, check it out, and if this episode doesn't inspire you, maybe the download will inspire you to say, hey, this FitSM has something in store for me, so let me check it out. Let me walk you through what the FitSM standard is requiring you for the release and deployment management process. Before I do that, I want to set the stage a little bit for those of you that are not quite familiar what to expect from this process, or would like to know a few more things as far as why this process is of such great value for any organization. So to set the stage as far as what this process is all about, why is it so important? Let me use the example of you work for a human resources department and you want to introduce a new procedure to onboard new employees. To release this new procedure into your organization, you want to increase the throughput time of these types of releases of these procedures. It could be one procedure, it could be multiple procedures, but you want to make sure that these releases are done swiftly, smoothly, and as quickly as possible, where possible, to increase productivity and increase the agility and flexibility when it's about these releases. You want to do this in a fashion that it is causing not as much disruptions, that it is done in a way that comes across as, and we know what to do when it's about introducing new procedures. The release management process and deployment management process will reduce the risk of unauthorized releases. You don't want to have procedures being released that didn't get all the approvals and all the authorizations from whomever is in charge to say, yes, let's do this and let's work differently going forward when it's about changing an onboarding procedure. It should decrease incidents as the results of a release. It should not result into, let's say, people don't know what to do. People get stuck into this new onboarding procedure, causing many disruptions, as in don't know where to go next, don't know who to talk to next, and causing, in essence, incidents or outages or disruptions of this new onboarding procedure. It should also reduce the business impact. When you follow a release management process, it should make sure that the business is not being impacted by these releases. They may be impacted, but not to the extent as in we could prevent such an impact. Mitigate release failure. Yes, you want to make sure that your release is successful and it is being done right the first time when it's about this new onboarding procedure. In other words, you want to make sure that there's a high success rate of introducing new procedures like the one that I was talking about for onboarding. Eliminate duplicate activities. Yes, you don't want to train and retrain the same people, as a simple example. You want to eliminate manual intensive activities and eliminate release conflicts, as in let's not put two procedures in place at the same time that have a huge impact on each other. You want to have some time in between those release moments, so to speak. Improve proper knowledge transfer is, of course, enormously important. Anytime you introduce a new release, that's a new procedure for onboarding, then that means information needs to be transferred. People need to be trained, need to be educated, need to be familiar, feel comfortable with the new way of working. And a standard release and deployment procedure or process will make sure that the right people have the right knowledge at the right time. Yes. So some priorities when it's about this release and deployment management process is to make sure that you consistently handle these releases from a risk perspective. Any introduction of, let's say, a new way of onboarding people comes with a risk. Yes, in other words, do people have the right knowledge, for example? Are they being trained properly? Do they use the right tools? Do they communicate the right time, about the right topics? There's also these risks involved that we want to handle in a consistent manner to minimize these risks. Do we keep track of the value that came from these risks? From these releases, I should say. In other words, did we get what we were looking for when it's about this release? Yes. Do we track the value? Do we measure the value? And we definitely don't want to have a negative impact of these releases where people say, well, that was a disaster, and therefore we don't like the procedure. Well, don't blame the procedure. Maybe it was all about we not following certain steps to release these new procedures. Effectiveness as far as successful releases. Yes, you want a high percentage of success rates when it's about doing these releases. For example, introducing these new procedures. Yes, as in see that all these releases are successful. Efficiency, timeliness of the release. If you, let's say, scheduled for this new onboarding procedure to, let's say it was going to take you 4 weeks to get everybody informed, everybody trained, everybody up to speed on the new way of working, but you end up having to do it over 8 weeks, right? That's not efficient, right? You may have wasted a lot of time and resources there. And be agile. Management of continuous releases. Yes, your organization is continuously improving and continuously releasing new ways of working or new ways of communicating or new ways of using tools and so on. So do this in an agile fashion, right? Build, release, and change upon change. Ask yourself, and use this as a checklist, right? Are you following these release and deployment management best practices? In other words, number one here, understand the organization's risk tolerance. Yes, when you assess the risk of a release, do you take into account, is the organization ready for another release in essence, right? Sometimes you also have to put the brakes on too many releases. Are you continuously adapt the risk assessment of these releases? Your organization changes, their risk appetite changes. Risk criteria may change, yes? In other words, adapt your way of assessing these risks. Seek maximum automation. Yes, when it's about communication, for example. Yes, if you're going to train people, right, try to record these sessions and then have people give them the opportunity to replay the videos, right, the recordings. That's a way of automation. Yes, it can be as simple as that. Continually optimize the release planning activities. Yes, when are we going to introduce these releases and what sequence? Yes, and see if there's also an opportunity to automate that. Maximize the use of checklists and models to make sure that you've checked all the boxes when it's about introducing, let's say, that new onboarding procedure. So you didn't forget anything, anybody, anyone, anything that had to be addressed in that release. From an IT perspective, for the folks listening in the IT world, integrate this release management process into your DevOps practices and software development lifecycle practices. 7 is about communication. Yes, of course, this is a huge factor in this process. Communicate the risks, communicate the planning, communicate schedules, communicate training, and so on. It's all communication, and continuously then also improve this release and deployment management process, because there's always room for improvement when it's about such process. As far as FitSM, it looks for 6 requirements when it's about this process. It says make sure that you have release and deployment strategies in place. So you do these releases in a consistent manner in essence. Have criteria in place to approve these releases, and then take into account that strategy that you've defined to do releases and deployments. These deployments of releases needs to be planned, and there should be acceptance criteria for those. And when a release is built, tested, and evaluated, then do it against these acceptance criteria prior to deploy that release. Do testing, and do testing per type of release. And when you do the deployment, consider certain steps to be followed. Yes, and also steps for backtracking or backing out of an unsuccessful release. What's the plan there? And finally, it asks for deployment activities need to be evaluated on success or failure. Yes, learn from mistakes in essence, And if you had a successful release, celebrate in essence. That's what this process is all about, what we see captured on this slide here. Well, I hope that this was inspiring. In other words, that you said, you know what, there's something to this release and deployment process from FitSM. If you say, no, I'd like to talk to you about it, Mart, I'll be happy to get on the phone with you to do a free coaching session. If you say, hey, leadership should know about this, I'll be happy to do a free FitSM executive brief for your leadership to get them on board. If you already are on board and want to get certified as an individual, happy to help you with that. Or maybe get certified as an organization. That's even possible with FitSM. Can help you with that as well. And if you need help with implementing FitSM and these practices, maybe through workshops, coaching, practice lab, by all means, just reach out. Yes, happy to be of help. That's it for release and deployment management. As I said, please download these documents from the fitsm.eu website, benefit from it, and enjoy the ride with FitSM, Fit Service Management. I want to thank you for watching this episode, and I look forward to seeing you at a future episode.